With all the Donald Trump news dominating, like literally eclipsing everything else, an unbelievable story got lost in the shuffle. The bizarre end to a wild manhunt for the former chief of staff to then Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who led the feds on a nearly month-long search for him. Roy McGrath is now dead following a shooting involving the FBI on Monday night. He'd been on the run for 3 weeks after failing to show up for his federal fraud and embezzlement trial in Baltimore. McGrath was finally tracked down on the outskirts of Knoxville, Tennessee, where authorities say the 53-year-old was injured in a shooting while FBI agents were attempting to arrest him. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The FBI had gotten a tip that McGrath was in the Knoxville area. They tracked his car and then tried to conduct a traffic stop near an interstate exit. That's when the confrontation occurred. Investigators still trying to determine the exact circumstances of the shots fired by the FBI agents. Was McGrath necessarily shot by agents, or was the gunshot wound that he suffered self-inflicted as they were attempting to make the arrest? Now remember, back in October of 2021, the Justice Department laid out the case against him. Their indictment alleging he stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Maryland state government. They said that McGrath requested a severance payment in the amount of his yearly salary from his previous government job of $233,000 plus, and then McGrath falsely represented that the governor, his boss, had approved it. McGrath was also accused of falsifying timesheets while on a European vacation and stealing money to, of course, take classes at Harvard. All told, he's accused of bilking the state of Maryland out of more than $267,000. Now, March 13th, he fails to show up for his trial. The arrest warrant's issued. His lawyer was left facing the questions that day as to his whereabouts and what led him to flee.
I have no idea where he is. I hope that he's safe, and I hope to speak to him very soon. I know that these situations are very stressful. The uncertainty of going to trial can cause people to do things that we may not believe are appropriate. But most importantly, I hope that he's safe.
Well, this is when things went from bad to much worse for McGrath. 2 days later, March 15th, federal agents swarmed McGrath's Naples, Florida home. To nobody's surprise, he was not home. Just his wife in pajamas. According to McGrath's attorney, the feds searched the residence. On March 28th, the FBI released a statement reading in part that Roy McGrath was considered a fugitive and an international flight risk. They offered up a $20,000 reward for information that would lead to his arrest and prosecution. And then finally on Monday, the deadly confrontation with federal agents. Joining us now is Jeremy Eldridge, contributor to Baltimore's WBAL radio. He's also a former Baltimore City prosecutor and a practicing attorney. Thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, so the FBI still trying to determine if the shot that ended up killing him was self-inflicted or came from them?
What's incredibly common whenever you have the FBI looking into the death of either a criminal defendant or a witness that may have been either cooperating with the federal government or have been a prior co-defendant is that they're going to take their time investigating. It's a little more unusual that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially provided some information to the public. We know, for instance, how he was tracked. It looks like Roy McGrath obtained several burner phones or phones from convenience stores and were utilizing those to communicate with people. We know that he purchased a recently bought Cadillac Escalade. What we don't know beyond that, however, is how he got from Naples to Tennessee. But in federal court, he wasn't under any sort of GPS monitoring. So the feds would not have been alerted as to the fact that he left Naples, didn't come to Baltimore, and instead made some sort of exodus for Farragut, Tennessee.
So was this a really powerful case against him? I mean, was it pretty clear that if he went to trial, if he showed up, which he didn't, that he likely would have been convicted?
This from all outside spectators here, criminal defense attorneys like myself, former prosecutors, looked like a really strong case. It was a paperwork-driven case. And the only witness testimony that would have been necessary would have been the individuals on the board of MES, the Maryland Environmental Service, that would have testified as to the portions of the transcript or the minutes that Roy McGrath supposedly deleted. What's more surprising, however, is that Unfortunately, it's going to serve as his epitaph to some degree. But the two recently published books under the different names for betrayal, those books ended up highlighting the potential defense we would have seen had the matter gone.
So that's what. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.